This DYM podcast is brought to you by LeaderTrex. Go to serve, return ready to lead. On a LeaderTrex mission trip, you'll serve and get out of your comfort zone. And through the program, your students will learn how to lead. They will bring that leadership and confidence back to your youth ministry, and it will make a difference for the rest of the year. Learn more and sign up at leadertrex.org. And since we love DYM, listeners always get 10% off resources by using the code DYM10 at leadertrex.org. That's DYM10 at leadertrex.org.
Ready, 1, 2, 3, hey! Hey everybody, welcome to 2018.
Happy New Year!
This is the Download Youth Ministry Podcast, episode 324. Can
Yes,
you believe
it
we've
is.
done that many, Josh?
I can't believe it. We're at year 12 of doing the show. That is unreal.
324.
It's
amazing.
Oh, a lot of waste of time.
Or investment in the children's future.
What children?
The children that these people represent.
Right.
Our viewers, our friends, our teammates.
Yeah.
We just typically don't call them children, but it's good to be together. Happy New Year.
All generations.
Happy
All
New Year.
generations.
Doug Fields here with Jason Carson, the Queen, Katie Edwards, and Josh, the co-host.
Play to the camera.
I heard Jason Carson, the Queen, and I was like, wait, what? And then it was Katie. So yeah.
Yeah, so here's the deal. 2018 for Download Youth Ministry, we've got a bunch of exciting new things happening.
Big news.
And we have a new studio going on. We've got our primary sponsor, Orange.
Thank you, Orange.
We've made some changes with some of our other sponsors that we've got some new news to report.
Oh, and
by
we're
our
not
next show.
Not this New Year
Contracts
kickoff.
aren't signed.
325?
Okay.
Contracts aren't signed.
325.
Tostitos, Del Taco. We can't even talk about the rest. So those are the obvious ones.
Yeah, Coca-Cola, we're
Yep.
still on hold.
Apple hasn't returned our calls.
But anyway, we will
have a
make
restraining order from
we will make
whatever.
some announcements in our next podcast. But as always, Orange is our primary sponsor.
Thank you, Orange.
Join us at the Youth Ministry Leadership Exchange. 3 of the 4 of us are going to be there, and that's February.
Yeah.
6th.
6th, 7th, and 8th.
Yeah. Why is Jason not going to be there?
I wasn't invited.
Yeah, it's not for senior pastors.
Senior pastors really don't. They don't need to go. They're too busy golfing.
YMLX. YMLX.
Yep.
It's put on by Download Youth Ministry, Fuller Youth Institute, and Orange.
Orange.
And
well, why
then
not?
go to theorangeconference.com, and
Yeah.
we're going to be there in April.
Probably
Jason
sold
will
out.
be there.
Yeah, probably sold out by now.
That'd be awesome.
But you could try.
Oh, I hope not. I haven't registered.
You
my
need
team
to.
yet.
It always
Yeah.
sells out. Usually, like
Shoot,
January,
okay.
February, you're lucky if you
Yeah,
get
it sells out.
Here's the deal, though. You can also hang out with us and check out the XP3 curriculum from Orange. They do a great job, a year-long curriculum, amazing youth ministry resources from Orange, and obviously Download Youth Ministry. We do a few things over there, too.
Yeah, it's fun. And join us at the Student Leadership
We do.
Conference.
We do a
Go to
few
the Student
things.
Leadership Conference.
Yeah.
Not the.
In
it's
Indiana.
just
It's just studentleadershipconference.com.
Student Leadership Conference.
Ooh, the logo
Oh, I
just
thought it was going to
changed.
pop up. I was like, this is exciting.
At some point in the show, we
Fancy.
might get Allison, one of our producers, sound engineers. We might get her lock screen at some point on that TV back there. We're just toying. We're
I'm
toying with
hoping it
the screen.
happens.
No, here we go. Hey, we got a lot of questions, lots to
let's
talk
do it.
about. Here we go. This is from Alyssa, and you say your last name for $1.
There is no last name. Oh, up here.
Yeah.
Oh, no problem. This is Zerandia.
I'm not
Zerandia.
sure that was English. Katie,
Zerandia.
I'm going to say Zeranandia.
Josh.
Wow.
That was pretty good. She got
I'm going to say Alyssa Zeronandia. Zeronandia. Yep.
I don't think anyone has a last name that goes.
You only said that because I said it just like that. You put a little.
I had a
something
little
on the something.
All right.
So who gets the $1?
Well,
Me,
she
obviously.
said, please
She'll
keep my
fix
name
it.
confidential.
Please don't use my name. Oops.
Oh, we didn't say it right anyway. So
That's
it doesn't really
right.
matter.
No one's going to figure out your name based on those pronunciations.
Yeah, it's good
Zorro's
question. She
star.
says, I need help on how to deal with parents that get mad when you keep things confidential with kids in your small groups. A parent found out about a student having a boyfriend, and I knew about it, and this parent was furious at me. Little do they know that there are a lot of other things going on too. Nothing that is harming themselves or others. How do I invest?
Let's just throw it out there.
Little do they know.
Yeah.
That was just so ominous.
There's more, parents.
Oh, trust me.
How do I invest in my student without feeling guilty and tell their parents? Or should I be telling them? For example, if they're actually having sex with their boyfriend or vice versa.
Yeah, it's a great question. Really, really good. Yeah, I think you have to set those expectations up really, really early. In the beginning of the small group year, circle up your parents and you got to say, hey, there are some things that we're going to know on a different timeline than you. We want to build that relationship, that trust factor. I would preface that by saying if your child is in danger or they're making active, destructive decisions and are not seeking help and are not, we're not talking it through, we're not engaged in that conversation, you're going to be the first to know if there's a dangerous situation happening. But there's going to be some judgment calls that I'm going to make that we always have what I believe is your best interest in mind. We might disagree on that, but I promise you that will be the case. And that will at least set the table for when this moment happens. And they're like, we thought we were in partnership. I would say we are. And now let's walk through this together. Set the expectation up that there's going to be some things told in confidence.
So
I like that.
Let's say your daughter is in Katie's small group.
Yep.
And we're going to use that same language.
I get it.
Active, destructive behavior.
Yeah. So if she has a boyfriend.
And she's having sex with that boyfriend.
Yeah, having sex is active, destructive behavior. No problem. Katie should come to me immediately and go, she should have said, or would say, Lexi, I love you. You need to tell your mom and dad about this. We need to have a conversation.
Or I
about
will.
this. At some point.
Yeah, you tell them or I will.
It might not be a tonight, but it needs to be very, very soon. If she has a boyfriend, I'd like to know that. I'm interested. It wouldn't be a ding, but it would be like, okay, all right, I trust Katie. I mean, she knows. But if she's having sex with her boyfriend, I would expect to know pretty quickly. Yes. That's a lot of pressure on
The problem though, I know, yeah, it's when it gets personal, the answer.
No, the language stays the same. I stand behind my answer. I might get a little more passionate about it as a parent and being very subjective, but I still think it's the right call.
But here's in my experience, most youth leaders wouldn't think like that. They would think I got to keep this kid's confidence. They're opening up to me. So obviously training is going to come in a major part on, even as the youth pastor, well, what are your expectations for your leaders to keep in confidence or not? Because to me, that right there would be like the idea of a boyfriend, or even I saw several examples of a kid having sex that the leader thought they should keep that confidential.
No.
You're saying
that's a wrong
black
call.
and white issue.
That's a wrong decision.
So, I mean, that's...
Well, think about the active destructive decisions. No way. Sex is way too powerful. It's way over the line.
Couldn't someone make that same case for a kid that had their first beer? A parent, in their parent's mind, like, oh, that's active destructive behavior.
Maybe, yeah.
And so a kid shares, oh yeah, I had my first sip of alcohol, and then...
I would put that really close to the line that I would want to know about right away,
Okay.
but I wouldn't put it over.
Yeah.
But I would put sex over the line.
But how do we... Yeah, so the tough thing about a line, right, is how do we ever know for each parent, for each case? You're going to have some cultures of church culture where it's like super legalistic, some is super just,
Whatever
free
goes,
with whatever.
sure.
Yeah, you're going to have some small groups where if that is the behavior and a leader tells a parent that so-and-so's having sex with so-and-so and that gets out, that the leader told, you've lost that small group.
Yeah.
So Josh is coming on pretty strong on this
No,
one.
I feel real passionately about it.
Yeah.
I think it's really clear. We're in partnership together, but there will be disagreements over the timeline of how and what and when we share.
Yeah.
But we're in
Well, see,
partnership.
timeline, that gives me a little more grace because I could wait till she graduates then.
Hey, remember when your
2
kid
years
was
ago,
14
your daughter-
and she was, I don't know if you remember this, she was sneaking out at night and wait, what?
What would you say a timeline though for that? If she was like, if someone's daughter was having sex and you knew they needed to share that with their parents, what would you give them?
I would coach.
Would you give them a week?
I would coach him or her
Give 'em 2
immediately
weeks?
that night, as if I was the youth worker, the small group leader in that decision, in that situation. I would talk to them immediately that night about your parents need to know this. This is something that's
Like
really
tonight?
wrong. I would say that I would start then by introducing that concept, and then it would be pretty quick. 2 weeks tops.
2 weeks tops.
I think there's so many language things for sure. Like, I think there's a difference between, I try not to use the word confidential with anything. I will keep things private, but I can't I can never make a 100% guarantee that I can keep things confidential.
Right.
So with students, I think the language is always, I will always keep things private between us, but there's nothing that I would say it's complete confidentiality. So with a student, I think with your students, there's language there that your kids need to be aware that there are instances where you would need to take something that's private into their relationship with their parents or something like that. But I'm not sure in partnership with parents that means we become an informant for parents. And I'm saying this as a parent, as a teenage daughter. I know there are things that Abby is telling her small group leaders that she's not telling me. And as much as that bums me out, I also have to only focus on me and Abby and parenting Abby. And so what does it look like to encourage parents in their relationship with their students? So instead of focusing on, so if the parent comes to me and says, you didn't tell me that my kid was having sex. Okay. I understand how you could be upset about that, Josh. I understand how you could be upset.
I'm incredibly upset.
I know. I understand how you could be upset about that. And I understand that is a huge deal. Talk to me about your conversation with Lexi and this unfolding of you. Like, how are you guys talking? Because I think the feeling betrayed as a parent, like, I know that is a really difficult thing, but then it comes back to Lexi has had sex.
Right.
So where do we go from here? You know now about this conversation, whether you feel betrayed by me or not as a youth pastor. What does this look like for you?
Now?
So because that is the tough thing about parents is I think.
Well, all their insecurities are rushing and they want to put them right on you.
I have felt those feels. So I understand that as a parent, but I think there's kind of, the partnership piece is tricky, because partnership does not mean informant. So I think really kind of figuring out.
I love that. I agree.
Figuring out where are those places that I don't think it's my job to inform parents of the sinful choices that their kids are making.
But there's still going to be a line. There's still going to be a line. If you're like, my kid, okay, it's not sex, right? It's typically, they're thinking about, they really are into, they're a boy and they're really into other boys. When you bring that up, okay, they're actively talking about when they're going to kill themselves. There's a line. We all have a line.
For sure.
You're going to be an informant at some point. I love the nuanced, thoughtful, I'm in.
Sure.
But there is a moment where you got to go, we got to tell somebody else. We got to bring in some help. We've got to do something.
Right.
I wonder if this is the new Josh in 2018, because I'm sitting here going, we've done 324 episodes. I'm not sure I've ever heard him come on so strong about something.
Right.
Yeah,
We start talking about my daughter. And
Yeah. Can I?
Lexi having sex.
As the pastor, senior pastor here, can I rebuke the hypothetical?
Amen.
Oh man.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because this is an after the fact moment, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it's too late now.
But the discussion though that started with Josh was like, if she's having sex, you got to tell the parents. I'm going, I wish Kathy was here, because Kathy's small group of girls, she had them 4 years in your youth group.
Yep.
And I'd say half of them at least were having sex, and Kathy knew about it. And so to then say that she knows about it, she's got to go to the parents with that information. Now if that's your expectation as a youth pastor, then you've got to drill that down. I just go, is there a bigger picture where that sets every youth group up for failure? Because now the small group leader is like, oh gosh, whatever you tell me. I mean, what about oral sex? And what if it's anal? Because then it's not necessarily vaginal penetration. You start drawing all these different lines about when is sex. All right. And then if I go to this parent, then do I even have a relationship with them? Are they church people? Are they outside the church? There's a lot of nuances.
I agree.
There. I think it's rough.
I think, I feel like my line has always been life-threatening, maybe. So obviously suicide, things that are
STDs aren't life-threatening, so that's
yeah. I mean, I guess
you're just gonna live with it. You're gonna be alive, but you're gonna live with it the rest of your life.
right. But I
still
think
alive.
you could probably make that case for any sinful choice is going to lead towards death,
Right.
right?
Well, and
so,
that-
I mean, so it's like which sins are worse or which choices are worse for a teenager. I mean, that's a really tricky business.
Don't you
to
think in
get
this
into.
situation, it's not a non-churched family who's like, I can't believe the youth pastor wouldn't. It's a core family
For sure,
that
probably.
you have a relationship with, and you look them in the eyes
If
for
you
the
have
last
a
5
relationship
months.
with the parent and you are friends with them, so like thinking of like Kathy's small group,
Okay.
and I'm sure they would be fine with it. He was, let's just be vague. He was on the brother was on your staff for a while. He was in the show for a while. Remember El Toro High School? Kathy's dear friends with her mom.
Great.
Okay. Now that creates a scenario there.
Sure.
Yeah. And so I think in a situation like that, well, I don't know. I think I'm different than Josh on.
Okay,
this one.
so you're gonna bump into this parent 20 times in the church lobby because there's only 20 kids in your youth group. You're gonna bump into them 20 times, and you're never gonna say anything. You're gonna hold, and then when they find out, they're gonna be like, "We had you over for dinner to our house. We saw you 20 times. You never brought up the fact that our daughter is slept with the entire football team." I find that hard to believe as a youth worker that that's the right decision.
But I don't know if
You took that a little far.
Well, I'm just saying there's a line. I'm pushing things to a
I'm
line.
not saying that
Football.
there's never a time to speak up. I'm not saying there's never a time to speak up, but you know, I don't think there's no ministry to the girl who's engaging them in that behavior. So it's not like I know this and I just become hands off in all instances. I think you're encouraging, her to talk to her parents for sure. You're encouraging her to stop the behavior. So I think you're doing ministry to the girl. It's not like I know this is happening and I just kind of let it happen. So I think there's ministry to the student, and I think there's power in that.
Yep,
So
I agree. I love
definitely
it.
think, but behavior management is not the business that we're in. So I think we have to be careful when we're like sharing behavior. I don't know how to articulate this, I guess, but I think the ministry doesn't stop to the girl. I think prayer doesn't stop. I think if parents find out about behavior that they don't, that they don't love or whatever, then I think we help them in that moment minister to their student in that behavior. So I don't know. I just think it's tricky to say a student commits this one sin or does this one thing, and then
let's take it off of that. So let's just go pornography, right? Your son is into pornography. When do you involve mom and dad in that conversation? I don't think that's very different. It's a little lighter for whatever reason.
Well, in the eyes of Jesus, it's not.
there you go. There you go.
Matthew
But culturally,
5:48.
it might be easier to talk about that one than a girl going out and having sex, whatever. Fine. So,
Okay.
I think the thing I'm concerned about is a kid confesses in a small group that, hey, I'm looking at pornography.
right.
And then what I'm hearing you say is then I go to that parent and say something to the parent, and then I've just lost that whole small group.
Yeah, I'm definitely not saying that.
Okay.
But I am saying.
But you
have
are
to-
saying that with a girl who's having sex.
I'm saying right. There is an opportunity to minister to the family. Not
Yeah,
just to the
I'm
son
not
or
saying I
daughter.
would be with Katie. I'm not saying I would pass that opportunity to minister to the family or minister to that kid or help that kid come clean with his or her parents. For me, my pause in all of this is going, I've got 12 kids in this group or 8 kids in this small group. And as soon as they find out that so-and-so confessed something to me and I went to the parents, I've lost them. I've lost them for this year. I've lost them pretty much.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. How can you create a culture where we support the family, take care of that sweet son or daughter, and preserve the confidence and confidentiality? I think it is an absolute dance. And at some point,
Sure.
the parents have to
I
be
know.
involved.
I think dance is the word, but when you didn't start with a dance, you started with a gauntlet, or a
Well, and I'm
firing
saying there is a
squad or
line.
something like
There is a line.
Yeah.
I just don't think we can hide behind we've been working on it privately for the last 2 years, and I'm so sorry we haven't talked to you about it. I haven't engaged you. And you're clueless to it. I mean,
I hear
you
that.
could put that on the parents too, I
sure.
guess. Like, oh, you should have
Well,
involved in your
what
kid's
if I
life.
said this?
No.
What if I said, hey, Josh, Christians in my small group, we're buddies.
Right.
Christians in my small group, there's 8 other guys, and man, the topic of pornography came up. And I'm not sure there's a guy in my group that's not struggling with it in some way.
Yeah.
Maybe we could get the dads together.
Right.
Or something. I
Right.
mean, I might do something like
That'd
that
be dynamite.
as opposed to saying, Josh,
Your kid's hopelessly addicted to porn.
yeah.
These are the sites he looked
Well,
at.
and I think there's a difference too when you've had a kid who is something ongoing, right? Where you have been working with them privately, for a period of time, where you think things are headed down a more destructive path versus the first time that they tell you something. And so I do think time, like I think you mentioned timeline. I think timeline is a thing too, with where you see ongoing behavior that's not going there's not going towards anything. So I think dance is a good word to use in this conversation.
Yeah, and what I like in this conversation too is, do you guys feel this way? In this day and age, I think so much tolerance is promoted so much, right? So we accept everything and we don't rebuke anything. I mean, at some point, no matter what sin it is, whether it's sex or pornography or partying or whatever, if a kid in your group, at least, I mean, I'm not sure, obviously the dance has to happen on the approach to parents, but I'm saying just addressing the sin with the kids as pastors, as youth pastors, as shepherds of this flock that God's given us. What if, maybe this is something that I'm gleaning from this conversation, is this is a great opportunity to realize in our position to maybe, take sin a little more seriously with our students, and to not just be like, oh, you can tell me anything and there will be zero accountability and zero consequences, but more like, I would say no matter what the sin is, especially if it's a 20-person youth group, right? If you're the youth pastor of that, for a kid to say, hey, I'm struggling with this. I mean, to get real about it and to say at some point, hey, you tell your parents this or I will. Let's not treat this sin lightly. Let's go after it. I'll hold you accountable. I'll be praying for you. I'll encourage you. I'll text you. But man, this isn't something you can keep secret because it's not healthy for you.
Well, he didn't keep it secret. He told you.
Yeah, but it's still secret. That's as far as he went, right? It's easy to tell. That's my point, I think. If he tells somebody that would never share it with anyone else and that would completely accept them and pat them on the back with zero consequences, that's a lot different than talking to someone that would get in your face and say, hey, this isn't okay. And let's change this.
Yeah, but so is the parent the one that gets in his face, or can you be that tough love small group leader?
Hopefully you
help
can
them,
be.
Because
See, I love it. That's in partnership with the parents.
Some
I love
kids
it.
are gonna go, man, if I tell my dad this, I'll never see the light of day. I mean, it's not,
Okay, so if you'll never see the light of day, how serious is this to you then? Like, do you care enough that this sin is destroying your life? I mean, we talked about how the STDs would lead to death or whatever, or suicide would lead to death. Any sin could lead to death. If we're taking sin a little more seriously, what a great opportunity to show them, like, hey, this isn't something to sweep under the rug and just think, like, let's make a habit out of this, or let's keep on cruising in this, but let's take it a little more seriously. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, send your easy questions to podcast.
But that's a good point too. I think it's just every situation is different, so we can't give we cannot give a blanket answer to this question. It would be irresponsible, So I think every kid is different. Every parent situation is different. The relational factor, the not part of the church. Like, I think one of the things that I'm learning more than anything right now is even the kid who is struggling with the same. There's 4 kids struggling with the same exact thing. I might have a different approach in every single one of those situations. situations. So it isn't easy to just say, well, this is what you do, or you just train your leaders like this. I think language is important, training is important, all of those things.
Their faith story,
But
there's so many subjective
nuance
things.
with sin and nuance in the way that we approach those things. I mean, that has got to be a thing in how we approach each kid and situation individually. So it might not look the same. The same family dealing with the same thing might have different approaches.
Right. And you would say that too, Josh, right? If a
100%.
non-Christian family came to your youth group.
Totally different.
And
totally different
the
approach.
kid was having sex and the parents aren't Christians, like you wouldn't go to the parents with that, would
There's
you?
so many
why
variables.
not, though?
That's what I'm
Why
asking.
not, though?
That's what I'm
If
asking.
we-
Does the line change then?
Yeah.
Does it?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no easy answer. Here's what
Yeah.
I'd say is I'm going, okay, how do we wrap this one up? Just
say the end.
How do I
And-
transition?
No, but I think
No, it's a good.
Matt's going to be
good
in my seat
conversation.
next
no,
week.
what's
I'll be like,
great is
yeah,
anybody
right.
listening to this is going, okay, I can kind of hear the struggle. I can kind of hear Josh on one
Exactly.
side. I can hear Doug on the other side.
Yeah.
I think I'm more concerned about the longevity of that small group and
Trust.
the nurturing environment, the trust and the small group leaders. And not saying that I don't want to get that kid help. I just know, I would probably be as strong, I'm not vocalizing as profoundly as you are, but I'm less likely to draw the line on what behavior is reported. And I think I'm more likely to say, as a ministry, let's communicate what small groups are to parents. Let's be really clear what they are.
Yep.
They're not information pass-throughs.
Right. I like it.
So they're not policing. What was your term?
Informant.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
not.
it's great.
The small group leader's not the informant. It's a safe place. If we feel like there is some behavior that is damaging to your child or life-threatening or whatever language you choose,
Yep.
you make that clear, have that stated. Maybe don't do that on your own. Do that with some other leaders in your
Sure.
church. Make sure your volunteers know what's happening in their small group so that they know that a kid is about to share something. Then if it truly is Josh's standard of like sex, Katie, I need to let you know
Right.
before you say anything.
This as the small group leader is the rule I'm following.
Or
whatever.
That if you share something of this nature, I may have to.
It's just better if you hide it, kids. That's
There's a problem.
well, that's the implication.
Well, I mean, you just setting every small group leader up to fail.
To fail. That's the
You know.
that's the tough thing, is because the word damaging is so subjective. So when you're
Yeah.
dealing with parent and youth pastor, if you don't define
Well,
that,
and I don't think you lead them down the implication that this group is
Right.
unsafe. That would be a terrible youth worker move to do. You would say, hey guys, I love you, and I
safe
love you so
place.
much that I'm going to hear you, and we're going to talk, and we're going to share. And I'm going to make some tough calls that maybe your parents disagree with. I'm going to hold something. I'm going to make some tough calls that maybe you might disagree with. I love you so much that I want to pastor you and help you walk with Jesus. So I need you to trust me in that process.
Yeah.
That would be a way of disclaiming the idea, this notion of complete confidentiality.
Yeah.
so think through your language. I mean, that's
Yeah.
everything right now.
And
the
you're gonna have
tone
to
of your
define
language,
that.
right?
I agree.
You're going to have to define language.
And as the point
right?
person, you're going to have to help every volunteer
Yeah.
in those unique situations
Totally.
that they're going to
Absolutely.
find themselves
Yeah,
in.
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, and you're going to mess up, and they're going to mess up, and parents will be demoralized or defeated or empowered and invigorated to then go out and do the wrong thing with that information. I get it.
Yeah.
A dance, a nuance.
And I'd be careful with the line too, because what's the line? Kids are always asking, how close can I get to the line, right?
Yeah, sure.
And now here we are as youth pastors saying, what's the line?
Sure.
If we said anything that is harmful to the individual, we could make a case for any sin out there that's harmful to them. So if it's anything besides suicide, what are we gonna do? Get a whiteboard and write down every sin we can think of and rank them and say, like, here's the line. Anything above this, we got to tell parents. Anything
I mean,
below
that's
it, we
practical.
don't.
It's
Feels
definitely
like a
practical.
really good
Makes
idea.
it easier.
Definitely practical.
Makes it easier.
Definitely practical exercise for sure.
Yeah.
I would just say, don't, as you're forming your language,
Makes it easy.
making decisions out of fear of how a parent will respond is a tough spot to be in, and I get that. There are times where I am scared as a youth pastor for how a parent is going to respond to a decision that I'm making, because I know that they are going to disagree with me. And there's times that I've made decisions out of fear of how other people are going to respond or not agree with me or not trust my judgment. I would just say, don't let that creep in. Don't let the fear, think through your language, think through what you believe is best. Talk to other church leadership so that they're on board with you as you're making judgment calls and things like that. Just don't let fear rule things of how somebody might respond to something, because when a parent responds upset, they're fearful. They're scared for their kids. They're sad about their behavior. They're feeling guilty about where they went wrong.
Deep insecurities of their own. Yes.
There are times where we're going to disagree and we might make a judgment call that's different than what a parent wants us to do. And so don't let that rule you. I'm trying not to let that rule me right now. So
Good.
That's great.
Good.
Yeah.
The end.
Yeah, should this just be a one?
How crazy would
What
that
if
be?
this was a question? And to be fair to Josh, poor Josh got
No, I'm
hit
fine
with
with
the
it. I'm fine with
all
it.
I
I'm
don't know
saying is
anything about
we
your
all
kids
have-
right now.
Here's all
I'll be drilling all of you about my
I
kids.
don't know anything about your kids right now.
Here's all I can say is though, we all have daughters, and I can't speak for Katie, but I'd want to know 100%. I would want to know, and that's hard because it goes against the principle of what I think. This is a tough one.
And
No.
to be clear, I do not want to ruin the culture of the small group of sharing and confidence and whatever.
Yeah, I know you don't,
Of course.
and nor do I. But I would want to know.
But how do you do that and honor that? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Would you want to know if your daughter confessed to a small group leader? Would you want to know?
I've thought about that question so many times with my girls because of why I want to know. Like, why do I want to know as a parent where my kid is messing up? And I've come back to, I feel my feelings are hurt that my girls don't trust me enough to come and to tell me those things.
Yeah.
So when I really drill down into why I need to know something as a parent, that's kind of the question I keep coming back to with Abby, because there have been things that I found out later that she has confided in someone else. And what I realize is I feel bummed. I feel bummed that she didn't trust me with that, or that she couldn't come to me with that. So then it's more about me than it is about her. And so I just think that's an important process as that I've had to kind of go through as a parent with some of that kind of stuff of, I'm glad she has a small group leader that she trusts to tell those things. And I trust that small group leader, and I know that small group leader, and I have a relationship with her, and that's why I trust her. So I'm bummed that I don't know, but I don't know that I have to know some of those things. Does that make sense?
That's a good point about trusting the small group leader. I think that would be a great piece of training in the beginning. We want you to trust the small group leader.
Get to know. I know.
Because it's too complicated to make a hard and fast rule.
Yeah.
So in partnership could also mean really, I know my kid's a small group leader and I trust them, but
it doesn't make it any less hard.
it doesn't change
It doesn't make it any less hard.
No, I
I'm
don't
not
know
saying
about you.
that.
I had lots of leaders that I look back and I would say I don't trust them.
Right.
Sure.
Some of these leaders
Right.
that were on my leadership
so
team, I'd say gosh, man, if that was it, looking back, if my kid was in that small group, I'd be bummed because that wasn't
Sure.
a godly, always Christ-minded leader. It was more someone that was there with the crowd and having fun and.
I'm not saying that I want to know everything about my kids. I do.
Course.
I love them. I want to know everything. I want to know who they like. I want to know if they hated volleyball. I want to know everything, but I also know that I'm not going to. So how do I bring people, how do I help usher them into great relationships with people? My daughters don't only have their small group leaders to lean on, they have cool village of adults that we have ushered into their lives. Yeah. So I think that's part of it too. I don't know. I think for me, I realize I'm not going to know everything. Yeah. So I want to make sure that they do feel like they've got other people who they can trust to tell things to. And really what it comes down to is my feelings are just hurt. Yeah. That they didn't trust me in that. But it doesn't mean I don't care. Yeah. It doesn't mean I don't want to know.
And I
just don't know if I'm going to know.
If my daughter, I'm trying to think about this one now, but if it was my daughter and she made out with a guy and I didn't find out about it, I wouldn't care. But if it goes to this sex example, I would want to know. I don't know how many things are in between there, speaking of the line.
Yeah.
But my
now,
gosh.
why would you not want to know on the making out?
I would want to know, but I wouldn't be. I would not be. I wouldn't be upset. It would be like,
Found out
well,
later.
gosh, it wouldn't be the end of the world. That wouldn't be the end. Not that sex would be. I'm just saying it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be devastating. It wouldn't be something that would be. I'd have to go back after my daughter and how could you not tell? I mean, it wouldn't be at any kind of level. It'd be like, oh, she had a boyfriend I didn't know about.
It's really hard because it's a reflection on you as a parent too. When your kid, it's not just
When your kid
bummed,
engages in behavior
but, right.
that
It's a
other people
reflection
I'm a
on
bad
you.
dad.
Now, everyone else knows about
Yes.
it except you.
Yes.
Your kid is out, whatever, and you didn't know about it, but everyone else knows, and they're not telling you.
It's
Because I'm a scary monster,
it's
and my kids don't trust me.
And scene. All right, well, let's go to
Oh
lunch.
gosh.
If anybody does therapy, email
it's so
me
fragile.
at.
You're so
It's
fragile.
so
I know. In this
fragile.
moment, I'm just thinking like all of those kids that are in that behavior and the line and the dance, like, you know, surrounding all of that, like I want them to be able to look up and see Jesus and see hope and restoration and healing.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I can return and I can be forgiven and I'm going to make mistakes and there's people who are going to love me and continue to love me like Jesus would love me and help me understand
Yes.
grace and forgiveness. And, you know, I think that takes a really long time to build that into a culture. And, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, parents cannot be responsible for their kids' behavior.
Right.
I mean, they're gonna choose, but you know, my line about if they do have prodigal times and prodigal moments, that we've given them directions back, you know, to the palace of grace and forgiveness and Jesus and restoration and hope and healing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't make these questions any easier.
One question.
Yeah.
One
The
show.
one question show.
Good stuff. I mean,
Wow.
good things for us to continue to process and talk about. You know, like
Yeah.
I'm still learning and still growing as a youth pastor in
Yeah.
these areas. So us wrestling this
Yeah.
is good.
Well, and I think my
It's
answer
good for
would
me.
have been
I
very,
took notes.
very different early in youth ministry.
Yeah.
Before I was a
Yes.
parent, it feels
my
way,
gosh.
way deeper in my heart than ever.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think there are just so many different nuances of our kids and ministries and doctrine and conservative personality. Like it all factors in. This is not an easy question to untangle, but it's been really fun.
Yeah.
That was your way of saying you were homeschooled and went to Awana.
And you're a liberal pansy who wants to excuse sin. And that's a show.
What are we in the middle?
Liberal pansy.
So uncomfortable right now.
You do it with a laugh. It's all good.
Yeah. Totally.
Doug, this got uncomfortable a few times because Doug has looked at you and you more than me during this show because we disagree. So that's good, though.
No, that's fine.
I think that's all right.
We've disagreed before.
Yeah, this isn't the first time.
No, and when you get to heaven, you'll see I was right.
Exactly. You'll be like, man, sin is just not that big of a deal. It's all covered under the blood. It's okay.
No, next show, Josh is going to have a list of all the sins. So not just
very
the
We're
sexual
going to put them
sin.
on the screen. They'll be
Yeah.
on the screen.
It
and
is
we'll
the
just,
more practical approach.
That's right. Put pictures with the sins
There's
and the kids
no,
near him.
there's
Yeah.
no nuance in that list.
And which ones you
Zero.
tell on.
Yes.
When to tell on your
Stars.
kids.
We'll vote.
Yeah.
We'll vote.
Yeah, make it a
Can I
group
say
discussion.
though, I loved what you said at the end. Boy, if that's not on the heart of every one of us as pastors, just say like, let's think kingdom minded.
I agree.
How do we point him back to Jesus? How do we like? I got the picture of Jesus with the woman caught in adultery and all those stones dropping all around, and he just looked her into the eyes. Where are your accusers? I have none, sir. Well, then neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more. He dealt with the sin, didn't sweep it under the rug, was dead serious about it, but forgave her and let her walk in grace, let her walk in the freedom, and all the stones dropped. And boy, wouldn't that be great to see in all these kids' situations, the stones dropping, and they were able to understand grace like it's really meant to understand.
It's good.
Yeah. Well, it's just, relationships are so difficult.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is so difficult. And what I've found that, the people who draw lines, it just makes their life easier. It's like we can draw a line of what we believe and what we, whether it be, homosexuality or sex before marriage or whatever. As soon as you draw the line, it just makes your life easier. But life, once you have relationships with people, and now I'm that small group leader with that kid, that line isn't as clear. Or I have a relationship with a person who's gay, that line is not as clear. And so it's just easier to draw lines. And I think what we've modeled in 40 minutes of talking is that, when you take away the line, it's a little more complex.
Yeah. I like it.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, great show.
2018.
Welcome to 2018.
Happy New Year.
It was a nice, lighthearted top of the year episode.
All right,
It's done.
As Josh said, send your easy questions to podcast because we're great at those.
We knock those out. 10 a show. 10 a show. I don't think we've ever done an entire show on one question.
Maybe
a couple times, but not very many.
I haven't been a part of one.
All
That's
right.
awesome.
Well, this one's done. Did we already shut it off, Elliot? Are we fine? Okay.
Well, we're good. All right.
And
Yay.
goodbye.